Look at the weather.
It's beautiful here.
Non-stop rain.
Oh, man, it is a blazer out there.
It's cold and it's shivery.
It is cold.
Really coming down here.
I really enjoy your weather reports.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, we're talking weather in a whole new way. From historical events to what's coming up, plus weather news, science, safety, fun facts, and more.
I like where this is going.
This is Weather Weekly. Weather Weekly with Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey.
Episode 92 of Weather Weekly coming your way here. Getting closer to episode 100. You have to do something really interesting for that one. A good one for sure. Looking forward to seeing what comes about for that one. But you're hearing a different voice for this week's episode. Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey is handing the reins over to yours truly, Storm Track 8 meteorologist Steven Diana. What can I say? I'm just an average, ordinary guy, but that works at a news station. But, you know, hey, it's always great to fill in on this podcast. Always great to help out my good buddy, coworker, friend Marcus Bailey, of course, and the entire Wish TV weather team is a great family as well. So, what can I say? We're a vibrant bunch and whatnot. But yeah, always happy to be on here and sharing weather information with you guys and just breaking down things and having a nice chat as always. So, I'm more than proud to fill in, of course, and give you guys a nice guide through today's episode. It's kind of going to talk about the local forecast of what we've been doing with lately. How about the chill this past weekend? I mean, we're talking days that felt like early to mid-November. I mean, it was like that chilly fall. Not that like that mild fall feel we had through the first couple weeks of fall. Like, it felt really, really nice up until about this past week. And I know some of us are not quite ready for those 50s for the afternoon highs and 30s for the lows. I know a lot of people are kind of like, wow, it was quite cold, and those breezy winds do not help. As we say here in the Midwest, that old saying, ain't as bad without wind and whatnot. If there's no wind, then it's not that bad. So, but yes, some of you probably had to get out those winter coats. Indianapolis, we had lows around 35 for Saturday morning and 34 Sunday morning. So we had widespread frost as well with that. Of course, the growing season basically coming to an end here as well. So hopefully the farmers out there got to at least get in a decent growing season. We had some lack of rainfall through the summer as well. But also, too, of course, we've also been talking about Ian and whatnot. I'm not going to touch too much on Ian, just to go ahead and kind of give a quick update. I did an article, actually, last week on Hurricane Ian and, like, an update on what's been going on. Death toll over 100. For those who don't know, it's the deadliest hurricane in Florida in 88 years. It's also actually the deadliest hurricane to strike Florida in the satellite era, and that began in 1960. That puts things into perspective. Of course, thoughts and prayers continue to go out to those folks down there. Really rough stuff, but I hear that the relief efforts are picking up nicely down there. The images down there are just so sad. You know, you feel for those people down there, and for those who have to ride it out, I feel bad for you for sure and whatnot. So hopefully that area continues to recover over the coming months and even years and whatnot. But yeah, of course, not going to touch on that really much. Of course, there's already been a lot talked about. But one thing I wanted to mention about real quick, too, that I haven't heard talked about yet, the damage costs from Ian, I think is going to wind up being probably one of the costlier storms in mainland U.S. history. I was hearing something about last week, the non-insured losses alone are like already probably estimating the tens of billions of dollars range. Ouch. That's not good. That's just, it's crazy to think about. But of course, back here at home again, we haven't had a lot of climatic weather. Today, as I'm recording this on the evening of Tuesday, October 11th, was another not too bad day out there. We did end up getting pretty cloudy. It's been kind of gloomy the last couple of hours here in Indianapolis. Had a batch of showers moved in the north and whatnot. We're expecting a more wet and windy Wednesday coming up here in central Indiana before we turn to a much more chilly pattern going into the weekend. More on that will be discussed in the extended forecast at the end of this podcast. But going to the meat and potatoes of this episode, you know, I had a really difficult time trying to figure out why I wanted to talk about this podcast, for this episode, I should say. And so I finally, it just dinged on me, I guess, suddenly. You know, October, we talk about how October can be such an erratic month. You can have everything in this month. It's kind of like April in a sense, basically, except this time we're making that long-term transition towards winter, the cold stretch of the time here in Indiana. October can be everything, can feature everything from severe weather to snow to heat to cold, really extreme cold. In this episode, I want to actually break down a couple of severe threats because October can get wacky with severe weather, and we've had some of those events in the previous years and whatnot. So coming up after the break, I want to go ahead and discuss a couple of those events just to give you an idea of what October can offer, but these are definitely more on the extreme end of the spectrum, but still, you never know what you're going to get here in Indiana. That's next on Weather Weekly.
Audible's romance collection has something to satisfy every side of you. When it comes to what kind of romance you're into, you don't have to choose just one. Fancy a dalliance with a duke, or maybe a steamy billionaire. You could find a book boyfriend in the city and another one tearing it up on the hockey field. And if nothing on this earth satisfies, you can always find love in another realm. Discover modern rom-coms from authors like Lily Chu and Allie Hazelwood, the latest romantasy series from Sarah J. Maas and Rebecca Yarros, plus Regency favorites like Bridgerton and Outlander. And of course, all the really steamy stuff. Your first great love story is free when you sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/Wondery. That's audible.com/Wondery.
Welcome back to episode 92 of Weather Weekly. Before the break, I want to just break down a couple of severe events that have occurred here in October that just show how crazy this month can get. Now, of course, in this time of the year, we're really not thinking about severe weather. Of course, our attention's drawn to how much cooler it gets and just trying to enjoy the crisp fall nights and whatnot and doing all these fall activities like the pumpkin patch or going to football games and whatnot. It's a great time of the year, you know, and how about sports season right now? It's electric as always. Gotta love fall. Fall might be my second favorite season, actually, I would say, behind spring, only because I'm a spring baby. But October can get a bit wacky. It can get crazy, and I've witnessed this a few times in my life, as well as all of you and whatnot here in Indiana. So I figured I'd go ahead and discuss a couple of those events for you. So I decided to pick two of the more notable October events, severe events in the state's history. For this one, we're going to turn back the clock quite a ways, and this is actually the first high risk I've been under in my life. We're going all the way back to October 2001. Yeah, quite a long ways back when you think about it. Of course, almost 20 years ago is when this specific event happened. And there's a lot of information about it. I'm actually going to go ahead and read it from the National Weather Service in Northern Indiana site because this is where the brunt of the activity happened. So this is an example of how you can get tornadoes to happen, of course, and whatnot, how you can have even a tornado outbreak in this month. Again, keep this in mind, too. Severe weather season in Indiana is from April to June, but you can also tie in with the fact, too, that we do technically have a second severe weather season in the fall, which is roughly October, November, very rarely December, although I'm sure we'll have an episode on December 10th coming up in a couple months. That one still actually hurts to look back on, to be honest with you, from just a personal perspective. But either way, October 24th, 2001, this is one that really comes up a lot in my head, especially if I ever were to hear a conversation about, well, what is something in October in terms of weather that you think about in your area? This is probably one of the events that would come first to mind. So October 24th, 01, that was a Tuesday that year, middle of the week, middle of the work week, of course, doing day life things and whatnot. Of course, 2001, times were different, obviously. No smartphones, obviously, back then and whatnot. But so this is what the Northern Indiana staff basically compiled together a story, and this looks pretty interesting. This is actually the first time I've been on this site. It's just because of the fact I already know basically a majority of what happened, but I figured I'd go ahead and just kind of look on weather service sites and see if I'm missing any other extra detail. So, of course, tornadoes can develop under the right circumstances at any time of the day, any time of the year in northern Indiana, northwest Ohio, and southern Michigan. Also, you want to include central and southern Indiana, too. On the afternoon of October 24th, 2001, conditions were highly favorable for a significant outbreak of severe weather throughout the lower Great Lakes region. I want to mention, so let's of course, with this being a podcast, let me help you kind of visualize things. We had a very large high risk, and back then, they only used a couple different risk levels, and I'm going to pull up the risk map for you here. So there were only two risk levels used back then, of course. There was a slight And then there's the high risk. Basically, all of Indiana was in the high risk, basically in the bullseye. Western Ohio was in the high, northwestern Kentucky, southern half of Illinois, far southern Michigan, and the slight encompassed basically all of the Ohio Valley and most of the Tennessee Valley, and then you have general thunderstorm risk and whatnot. So basically, again, Indiana was kind of in the bullseye of this risk. But a lot of the tornadic activity happened in northern Indiana. I do remember looking back at the warnings that day. Indy was under, I think, 2 tornado warnings that day, but none of them ever really happened around here. We did have some, I'm almost positive we had some strong gusty winds for sure, because we had a line of storms push through as well. So basically, we had a warm, unstable air mass was in place with southerly winds pumping in a supply of moist air, and these are some really high dew points for this time of the year. You don't really see 65 to 70 degree dew points. When you see that kind of moisture this time of the year, with strong winds aloft, you definitely want to be severe weather ready. Trust me, that spells trouble right there. That's a big red flag for this time of the year. Storms began to quickly develop during the afternoon as a strong front approached from the west. The cold front exhibited a striking contrast of air masses, with temperatures plummeting about 15 degrees within an hour of the front's passage. Of course, a front forms when you have a collision of air masses, so you get warm, moist air colliding with cold, dry air. So you get your fronts and whatnot. So this was a powerful low-pressure system for this time of the year and whatnot. This front provided the focus for rapid thunderstorm development. Also, the wind field was conducive for developing strong rotation in the storms that led to tornado development and the strongest storms, as I just basically iterated to just a few seconds ago. The winds at the surface were generally from the southeast to south, up to 20 miles per hour. Meanwhile, winds just a few thousand feet above the ground, which is they're basically referencing the low-level jet, which is about a mile up, or from the southwest with speeds of already 50 to 70 miles per hour. This shift in wind direction and increase in wind speed greatly enhanced the threat for tornadic storms, and also that increases the threat for significant tornadoes. A significant tornado is anything rated EF2 or higher. Back then, no, we're talking the F scale, so F2 or greater and whatnot. Of course, they got a link to the damage survey and also a complete timeline of events from October 24th. Basically, I'm just going to kind of do a general breakdown of what happened. So from what I can count here, there were like 10 tornadoes in the IWX forecasting area on this day. You had several significant tornadoes. You had 2 F3s within the forecast area as well. And that was the highest rated tornado from this day. So, of course, you're getting started early in the day. And also, just to mention back to the risk, by 11:30 a.m., the Storm Prediction Center issued a public severe weather outlook calling for, quote, intense tornadoes. Intense tornado, that is F3 or EF3 or higher. That kind of wording would make my stomach drop if I heard that in my area, in this area, because, we don't want to deal with that stuff, obviously. And also, not long after that, the SPC ended up having to issue a rare, particularly dangerous situation tornado watch for northern Indiana and northwestern Ohio. Those watches do not happen very often around here. Matter of fact, the last time we had a PDS tornado watch in Indiana or central Indiana was back in November 2013, so it's been quite a while since we've had that happen. Around 12:30 p.m., a line of storms began forming as central eastern Illinois moved east. I'm just going to kind of try to scope through this real quick, kind of paraphrase, and just take out the main details from it. Just to kind of quickly get through this one, of course, because I want to talk about another event. The town of Monticello, Indiana, was struck by an F2 tornado. Now, also, too, remember, Monticello got hit by the F4 back in the super outbreak back in 1974. That was that really long track tornado that tracked for over 100 miles. Where homes and with this tornado in 01, though, back to this one, homes and businesses were severely damaged. And then at 3:12, a tornado warning was issued for LaPorte County. And I believe this was the tornado. Nope, no, it's not. I almost incorrectly said the wrong tornado, but I'm just kind of making sure I'm getting which one's what. This tornado killed a 50-year-old woman when her modular home was swept away near LaPorte. And that's sad because this is the thing of mobile homes in a severe weather situation. The only rule is there's only one rule. You have to leave the mobile home. And we get the whole thing of home is home, but we want you to be able to be in a substantial shelter when, especially you have threatening weather like this approaching. So at 3:15 p.m., another tornado watch was issued for southern Michigan. At 3:46 p.m., you had another warning issued for St. Joseph County. We're talking far northern Indiana. And then also southeastern Berrien County, Michigan, and Cass County. A few minutes later, the strongest of the outbreak, rated F3, did major damage to buildings in Crumstown, which is near South Bend. The line moved into South Bend at exactly 4:05 p.m. And also, too, it needs to be mentioned, too, there was a pretty high risk for damaging winds as well. So this was not only there was a significant tornado threat, but there was also a pretty significant wind threat with this as well. Seeing the highest wind gust of this event was quite high. I'll mention it here in a moment as well. So basically, you had an 89-mile-per-hour wind gust at the airport. The tornado also hit Niles in Berrien County, Michigan, then moved east-northeast into Cass County. 2 people were injured by the Crumstown tornado, and then 1 person later died of their injuries. Storms then moved into Kalamazoo and Calhoun counties in Michigan. Skies reportedly there turned very green. Green or a greenish-black appearance with the sky when severe storms are approaching. It's a very eerie sign. And I remember hearing this when I was a kid. It's a very eerie sign that a tornado might be imminent. And it's still actually a myth as to why skies turn that green, or just green in general. An old theory was because of hail. But a green appearance is pretty eerie. Storms caused major damage to the Schoolcraft area of Kalamazoo County, where straight-line winds in excess of 120 miles per hour were reported. That's just unreal. I couldn't imagine myself being in the middle of that. Causing a golf dome to blow away, rip the roof off a house, ripping the front wall of a brick house off, and twisting irrigation sprinkler systems. Kalamazoo also reports strong winds as well. Other weaker tornadoes were reported in Mishawaka and into Elkhart County. Basically, you also had other stuff like later in the evening, severe straight-line winds pushed through the campus of Michigan State University, which is in East Lansing, Michigan. National Weather Service estimates most of the downbursts through East Lansing were between 60 to 80 miles per hour. Again, with one reaching 120, down many trees and damaging buildings and whatnot. You had another tornado reported in Ohio, which was an F3 that moved from Paulding County to Putnam County, caused major structural damage to buildings near Fort James, Ohio. So basically, the severity of the activity began to wane later that evening. By 7:30, all severe weather watches were discontinued. So for this event, total 25 tornadoes touched down during the outbreak across the Great Lakes and Mississippi Valley. You had 7 significant tornadoes. 5 are F2, 2 are F3, and then 18 weak with 7 F0 and 11 F1. Just a reminder, though, that the fall season in general, especially October, November, with this event in particular, along with the other one I'm going to discuss here in a minute, can showcase some crazy things, some erratic stuff and whatnot. Of course, this doesn't happen often, thankfully, but whenever you get a system like this that moves through, you definitely always want to be weather aware. It's a good reminder of that, too. Again, like I was saying earlier, with the secondary severe weather season getting ready to start up, of course, especially with folks in the southeast, of course, their second tornado seasons, or their other tornado seasons getting ready to start kicking up here, especially in November. It continues through into December as well. Of course, with states like Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia having notable outbreaks in December and even January and whatnot. So with Indiana, though, we're not, out of the question either with it. It's just not often, thankfully. But October 24th, 01, again, it's actually the first high risk I've been involved with in my life and whatnot. Definitely interesting for sure. I don't remember it. I was 3.5 years old. But moving on to the next event I want to talk about. This one really intrigues me because of basically everything about it. This next one really just, whenever I think about it, I'm kind of like, that really happened? It's like one of those things. So let's fast forward to October 2010. Now, 2010 was a very active year. There was a lot of tornadic activity through April, May, June, and it really didn't seem to stop. There was always something happening, especially I remember watching Storm Chasers on Discovery, of course, which no longer exists on Discovery, but that was season 4 of Storm Chasers that year, and I remember, like, every episode, there was always something crazy happening within the episode, whether it was the Yazoo City tornado or the Minnesota outbreak in June 2010 and whatnot. So a lot of active weather going through 2010, and of course it got really hot here in Indiana in August and September. We're talking, we had like record highs happening and whatnot. And so that leads way to October. So October 2010, from my recollection, I don't really remember it much. I had just started middle school not long before this. So I was in 7th grade when this happened. I was 12. I do remember this event, though, that I'm getting ready to discuss. So let's get to October 26, 2010. Surprisingly enough, again, this one was also on a Tuesday. And I had absolutely no idea what was coming. I had no idea. I had no, heads up about this event coming, this very impressive system for this time of the year moving in. To me, it was just another school day. I had to get up early. These were the days where I had school from 7:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. It was always nice to get out of school a little early and whatnot and be home by 3. Those were the good days in middle school, or should I say 7th grade alone. But so I get through the first class. I had this class, I'm pretty sure it was called Avid. Not much going on in the class. I'm just trying to get through the morning. It's when I got to my second class, that's when things got pretty rocky in a hurry. I had social studies during this time, and I want to say it was about 10 a.m. when this all started going down. Here's what was happening, and here's what this event was known as. So the October 2010 North American Storm Complex is a name given to a historic extratropical cyclone that impacted North America. The massive storm complex caused a wide range of weather events, including a major serial derecho. Basically, derecho, a long-lasting event of significant damaging winds over at least 250 miles long. From the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes, a widespread tornado outbreak across the southeastern United States and Midwest, and a blizzard across portions of the Canadian prairies and the Dakotas. These systems can be wild. With these systems, I tend to think back usually to the storm of the century in March of '93. That had something similar to it, with a widespread range of events, with tornadoes to lots of heavy snow to cold air, all kinds of things happening. And this was a complex that lasted for over a week. The height of it was kind of through the end of October and whatnot. The cyclone's lowest minimum pressure of 955.2 millibars made it actually the second most intense non-tropical system recorded in the continental United States. The lowest pressure confirmed for a non-tropical system in the continental U.S. was set by a January 1913 Atlantic coast storm. Some very interesting stuff here. Definitely want to spend a little more time on this one, especially with the fact that I do remember this. So here's kind of the breakdown of this. The hard-hitting notes. There were 69 tornadoes, and that's a record for a continuous outbreak in October. I think that still stands from the sounds, from what I can remember too. Max rating was EF2. There were also 9 inches of snow, maximum snowfall, in St. Louis County, Minnesota. 1 fatality from the snow event. Injuries unknown. Damage was estimated up to almost $19 million. And this says Tornado Next, so I'm assuming, of course, that's from mainly the tornado stuff. So basically, along with that, the snow, you had significant snow on the backside of the system. You also had a lot of just gusty winds with this whole thing. I'm going to focus on the severe aspect of this because this was just... This was so wild. I don't know where to even begin with this whole thing. I think the craziest part about this, if you're to really ask my honest opinion about it, the craziest thing about it, this was a morning event for Indiana, and it's pretty rare for a severe event to happen this early in the fall. We don't usually have that. I typically see severe weather happen more often in the summer, believe it or not. I've noticed this too, especially with, of course, you have high moisture and whatnot, and you get some decent winds aloft and whatnot. You kind of get some of that organized stuff and whatnot. There you go. That's just how it kind of rolls sometimes. But this was definitely a rare event for us. At one point, mainly the entire state of Indiana was under a high risk of severe weather. Again, that's the highest risk you can get. By this point, though, we have the slight, moderate, and high. So we have 3 risk levels along with that, just the general thunderstorms outline in general. But one thing to know about the risk, there was a rare 60% wind. With the SPC threats, with the wind itself, there's a 5, 15, 30, 45, and 60%. Also, of course, you have the hatch with it too. So we had the highest wind threat you could possibly have, 60% SIG, which I think is like, I'm trying to recall here, this is either the only time I can recall it happening here in Indiana, or there may have been one other event where we had a 60% SIG wind hatch or outline in Indiana. And that's rare to see in Indiana too. It was such a high threat, and that's, of course, where the Storm Prediction Center is like saying, we have high confidence that a significant widespread wind event is going to unfold, and this is going to be a dangerous event. So, of course, being one of the strongest areas of low pressure ever impact the lower 48 states. So basically, in central Indiana, we had 2 tornadoes confirmed. There was also numerous straight-line wind events being reported. Here's how I remember this a little bit, and I'll kind of get further into specs of this event. So back to the social studies part. I was in social studies. I was sitting closer to the door. The window was on the... I can remember this. I think the window was facing, if you looked out the window, you would face north, I believe. And I do actually kind of recall seeing it get pretty gray outside. I mean, we're talking a pretty dark gray blue appearance happening. Again, it's like 10 a.m. in the morning. I'm not sure what's happening. I'm, of course, paying attention to the lesson. All of a sudden, we start getting in this announcement. Right as soon as the announcement happens, my classmates are actually looking outside. And the announcement over the intercom says, everyone must get to the first floor right now. We have a tornado warning. And yeah, we were under a tornado warning at like 10 in the morning. And so I remember one of my friends, she recalls she was looking down at the street and she said cars were stopping immediately. Like immediately, just suddenly stopping. I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, do not tell me there's a tornado outside. There wasn't. Just long story short, there wasn't. But of course, all of a sudden, cars were stopping. That's all. I didn't look at the window at all. I was close to the door, and I'm like, well, I can't go over there to look, so we all got to go downstairs. One of my close friends at the time, Nick, he's still my close friend this day, he was sitting next to me, I think, and he was kind of freaking out. A lot of people are freaking out. Again, I don't think a lot of us were even aware that we had a really high risk of severe weather this day. And we were down there for probably in the first floor for about maybe 20 minutes. It was a really fast-moving system. Not long after that, I hear that there was a potential tornado in New Palestine. Like I think a day or two later, one of my former I wouldn't say cross-country coach, but one of the former athletic directors that at one of my old schools, I think he was talking about how he said there was damage near his place and whatnot out east, or something along those lines. It was a very chaotic span of about an hour there. There was a lot of chaos going on, but then we resumed activities as normal. And the system just raced eastward. This thing was moving super fast. I want to say probably 55 to 60, 65 miles per hour. This was like, as soon as it happened, it was as soon as it ended, basically. There were a lot of wind gust reports. You had a brief tornado touchdown about 2.5 miles east of downtown Kokomo near County Roads 300 East and 50 North. Tornado was rated EF0, of course. So trying to see if I can find anything else. In addition, significant damage was observed in and near Wilkinson and Hancock County. The NWS ground survey has determined that both tornado and straight-line wind damage occurred with estimated wind speeds of up to 80 miles per hour. A brief EF0 tornado touchdown 2.4 miles northwest of Wilkinson on Nashville Road. Some of the most significant damage occurred to a hog barn that was under construction near the intersection of County Roads 1100 North and 1100 East. And I had never heard of this community. I wonder if it's an unincorporated community. Looking at where Wilkinson is now, Wilkinson's actually just off of State Road 109, pretty close to. It's basically just south of Marklettville. It's actually a little bit closer to Knightstown, just north of Interstate 70. So, injuries occurred to two workers who were on stilts constructing the ceiling in the unfinished hog barn when the storm moved across the area. Also, it looks like also significant damage was also observed in western Randolph County and southeast of Parker City. Damage survey has determined this damage was caused by straight-line winds with estimated wind speeds of around 80 miles per hour. 5 buildings were damaged or destroyed. The most significant damage was a roof taken off a home and a garage picked up and moved off its foundation. That's just incredible. Here are peak winds for October 26th from observing stations across central Indiana. Just kind of give you an idea of the stronger winds across the area. Terre Haute, 58 miles per hour. Indy had 54. Shelbyville, 49. Muncie, 48. Lafayette, 44. Bloomington, 43. There were just tons of damage reports. A lot of straight-line winds. Straight-line wind damage can be so significant. Sometimes it can even be more significant than a tornado. So it's like with straight-line winds, you always want to take those seriously as well. They can cause a massive amount of damage. Of course, for those who remember, we had that nasty line of storms roll through early April 2020, April 8th, 2020, during the pandemic time, basically. And we had widespread significant damage from that event. We also had a tornado near Mooresville with that one, too. So that's just another example of, like, straight-line wind stuff should be taken just as seriously, but kind of gives you a perspective of how October can get more on the wild side and not in a good way either. But, of course, preparedness goes a long way, and we talk about this all the time. You always want to be weather aware whenever there's a risk of severe weather. I know, especially with here in central Indiana, we haven't had an outbreak in a while. I know some of us are probably thinking, well, they always say it's going to happen and it never does. But here's the thing, though. It's better to be safe than sorry, in my opinion. You know, just being aware and vigilant about what's possible. You know, we're not going to sit here and ever hype anything. We, of course, approach things with a little bit of caution, and we always come clear and cut forward and whatnot with this stuff. But yeah, I'll tell you what, though, October is a really strange month in Indiana. Sometimes it kind of makes me wonder with some of these events. I'm like thinking, man, this month is just something else, the way it acts sometimes. But I hope that gave you some new insights of how October goes. If you don't know too much about how October can be like here in Indiana, I hope that kind of helped you out a little bit as well, kind of learned something from this as well. It's also a good educational standpoint, too, with this episode because of what could become possible in this state and whatnot. But the October 01 and 2010 events usually pop up in front of my head, basically, like, that's the first, like, two events, if you were to ask me something about October weather and whatnot, severe weather more or less, but, of course, again, you can get the other extremes, like cold, heat, snow, so this month is, this month is insane. Well, coming up after the break, we're going to go ahead and break down the extended local forecast and the transition towards cooler air after an active Wednesday coming up on Weather Weekly. Let's look at the forecast as we stroll our way towards the weekend of the 15th. Of course, Wednesday will showcase Good chance for some showers, maybe some isolated thunderstorms as well. Winds look to gust up to 35 to maybe 40 miles per hour times, so definitely want the rain jacket, not the umbrella. Don't want to deal with the umbrella turning inside out. That's no fun, of course, as always. And also, too, after that, when that front slides through Wednesday, it's going to drop temperatures quite a bit. Thursday, we're looking at highs in the upper 50s to low 60s. Friday, we continue with highs in around the same range. Winds will stay breezy, though, through the remainder of the work week. Gusts could be up to 25 to 30 miles per hour for both Thursday and Friday as well. The weekend, we look to try and make a slight comeback in the temperature department. Highs in the low to mid-60s, but winds are not going to be light. They will be a little bit more on the breezy side. And even looking further ahead into the 6 to 10 day outlook, we got like a bullseye of chilly air basically through much of next week. We're talking a pretty good chance for below normal temperatures and also below normal precip. We definitely could work in some rain. We are definitely running dry this year. Still haven't gotten any rain here in Indianapolis. Of course, areas north again picked up on some rain earlier. Let's hope Wednesday could kind of help us out as much as possible. But the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook from October 19th to 25th does showcase maybe a return to near normal. We can maybe trying to work in the warmer air from the west a little bit. But it doesn't look like it's going to be very active as of now. But of course, things can change over the next week to two. But tell you this, it's looking pretty chilly next week. There's even discussion about possibly a freeze, maybe like a hard freeze or whatnot. I'm seeing with the forecast discussion. We'll see how it kind of evolves. But yeah, I definitely don't want to pack up that winter coat just yet. I kind of keep it lying around basically just in case as we get closer to next week and how the forecast evolves. But thank you guys as always for tuning in to Weather Weekly. Always great to be on here and chat with you guys about all things weather. Be sure, if you have any ideas, by the way, be sure to email Marcus at marcus.bailey@wishtv.com. He always would appreciate topic ideas and whatnot. We are absolutely 200% nerds. Love talking about this stuff. Geeking out, being geeks. That's what we love doing. But no, it's always a great time just kind of laying back and chatting about weather. But thank you guys again so much for listening. Also, too, you can follow me on social media. On Facebook, my weather page is Steven Diana WX. I have a V in my first name. On Twitter, you can follow me at Steven Diana WX. There's no space. And on Instagram, I'm on there at StevenD_WX98. I haven't really posted on Instagram in a while. I feel like I should get back onto that one, but I usually try to post a bit to my Twitter and Facebook when I can and whatnot, so all good there. But yeah, I hope you guys tune in to next week's episode of Weather Weekly, and also check out all the other amazing podcast episodes on here with all kinds of great details. On that note, we'll be back with another episode of Weather Weekly next week, as Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey will be rejoining you guys for that. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Take care. Be safe.
Discover more from Storm Track 8 Weather and Wish TV. Online at wishtv.com and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Plus, be sure to check out more great podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.